On Father's Day, my daughter sent me a gift box that was supposed to be a surprise, but my wife looked at it and whispered, "Don't open it." I asked, "Why can't you see?" I looked closer and froze in shock. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. You won't believe what was in the box. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and share in the comments where you're watching from. Dad, do you even understand? I need the money now, not when you die. The sharp words cracked the air. A coffee cup slipped from Samantha's hands, shattering on the wooden floor. Brown liquid seeped across the Persian rug as her manicured fingers trembled. I tightened my grip on the inheritance documents. 30 years of planning turned into weapons in my own daughter's hands. The papers crinkled under my white knuckles. "Samantha, I'm not an ATM. You'll get your inheritance when the time is right." Her husband, Peter, sank deeper into our leather sofa, his smirk widening. "Come on, Will. She's your only daughter. What's a few thousand to help us out?" "A few thousand?" The man had no shame. Last month, it was gambling debts. Before that, shopping sprees. The requests never stopped, only grew bolder. "Help you out?" I stood slowly, my 66-year-old joints aching. "I've been helping you for 3 years straight. My retirement fund is not your personal bank." From the doorway, Jessica twisted a dish towel in her hands. "Please, everyone, just calm down. We can talk this through." Reasonably, Samantha snapped at her mother. "He's sitting on hundreds of thousands while we're drowning in debt." "Debt you created," I said quietly. "Debt from your own choices." On the mantel, the family photo had fallen face down. Whether it tipped during Samantha's tantrum or was turned deliberately, I couldn't tell. Its silver frame caught the light, reflecting only emptiness. Peter leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Look, old man, you're not getting any younger. Why not enjoy sharing your wealth while you're alive to see us appreciate it?" "Old man," the words tasted bitter. This from someone who never kept a job, living off my daughter's credit cards and my reluctant generosity. I worked 43 years for that money. I said, each word harder than the last. 12-hour days, missed dinners, canceled vacations. So Samantha could have a good childhood. So your mother and I could retire with dignity. Dignity? Samantha barked a harsh laugh. "What's dignified about hoarding money while your daughter suffers?" I looked at her designer handbag, fresh salon highlights, expensive jewelry, and Peter's new sneakers. Their suffering looked comfortable. "Your suffering," I said, the word slipping out, "is self-inflicted." The silence was sharp enough to cut. Jessica stepped fully into the room, her face pale. "William, should what?" Samantha's voice cracked like glass. "Should we keep enabling your selfishness? Keep pretending you're a loving father instead of a greedy miser?" Her accusations landed like blows. Greedy, selfish, unloving. 43 years of sacrifice, and this was a return. Peter rose, his expression hardening. "You know what I think, Will? You enjoy watching a struggle. It makes you feel powerful, doesn't it? Get out," I said, voice rising from somewhere deep in my chest. "Both of you, out of my house. Your house." Samantha's eyes glittered dangerously. "This is the house Mom helped pay for. The house where I grew up. You can't just kick out your own daughter. Watch me." But they didn't move. They stood like predators, sensing weakness, waiting for the usual apology, the usual compromise, the usual check. Not this time. I opened the front door wide. Cool evening air rushed in, carrying honeysuckle and the sound of neighbors' laughter. Normal families with normal conversations. How long since we had that? "Samantha," I said without turning back, "take your husband and leave. Don't come back until you're ready for a respectful conversation about your problems and solutions that don't involve my wallet." "You'll regret this," she hissed, snatching her purse. "When you're old and sick, remember this moment. Remember how you chose money over family." Her heels cracked like gunshots against the floor. Peter paused at the door, sneering. "This isn't over, old man. Family doesn't abandon family." The door slammed, rattling the windows. Silence fell, heavier than their shouting had been. Through the glass panels, I watched Samantha's BMW screech out of the driveway. Behind me, Jessica whispered softly, "William." I turned. The living room looked like a battlefield. Coffee stains marred the Persian rug. Inheritance papers lay scattered like fallen leaves. The family photo still glinted mockingly on the mantel. 43 years, I muttered. What? Jessica asked. 43 years I worked overtime, through her high school years, so she could close textbooks, that car for her 16th birthday. We even paid for the wedding we couldn't afford. Jessica quietly gathered the papers. She's struggling, William. The gambling problem is her choice. I snapped. Every casino visit, every online bet, every lie, her choices. I straightened the family photo. The little girl smiling back was 5-year-old Samantha, gap-toothed, sitting proudly on my shoulders. When did that joyful child become this manipulative stranger? I whispered, "Remember the Christmas she wanted that dollhouse?" I asked, from an expensive toy shop. I worked double shifts for 2 months to buy it. Jessica said nothing, but we both remembered, just as we remembered ballet lessons, summer camps, brand-name clothes. Every sacrifice gladly made. And now, she threw coffee mugs because I wouldn't hand over my retirement. She didn't throw at you, Jessica said softly. She threw at the floor. The difference felt meaningless. Violence was violence. Disrespect the same. I picked up one of the scattered documents. The legal text blurred, but I knew every line. Years of sacrifice, careful planning. Also, Samantha would be secure one day. Peter's influence, Jessica murmured. He puts these ideas in her head. No, I said firmly. Peter didn't create her greed. He just gave her permission to breathe. The harsh truth hung in the air. Our daughter had become someone unrecognizable, and we were guilty of enabling her, always giving in, always smoothing over with moneyed MY phone buzz with text from an unknown number. But I instantly recognized the tone. It was Samantha. Dad, I hope you're happy. The kids need winter coats and school supplies, but clearly your precious money matters more than your grandchildren. Don't expect to see them anytime soon. Her words stung, using EMMA and Jake, just 8 and 6 years old, as pawns in this endless battle for money. It was her ultimate weapon. I showed the message to Jessica, whose face collapsed with worry. She wouldn't really keep them from us, would she? She whispered. But we both knew the truth. She would. She had before, short punishments whenever I refused her financial demands. Weeks without seeing the children, just to twist the knife deeper. No, I said firmly, my voice sharp like a gunshot. No more. I won't be blackmailed with threats about the kids. I won't teach Emma and Jake that love is a transaction. Even Jessica flinched at my tone. In nearly 40 years of marriage, she had rarely seen me this angry, this final. But something had shifted. The illusion of sacrifice for family shattered like the coffee mug Samantha had thrown point 6 days later. It was Father's Day. I sat on the porch with a cold mug of coffee and a newspaper, trying to cling to a sense of normal. Around me, neighbors laughed, packed cars for outings, and worked in their gardens. Normal families. Families who still spoke to each other. Inside, Jessica moved about the kitchen, deliberately avoiding the silence that hung between us since that night. Then I heard the rumble of a delivery truck. A UPS driver approached with a medium-sized box. "William Carr," he asked. "Yes, that's me." "Happy Father's Day," he said with a smile. "Someone must think highly of you to pay for Sunday delivery." Curious, I signed and took the box. It was light, far too light for its size. No return address. Nothing personal. Just a plain package. Jessica stepped into the room, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Who's it from?" "No idea," I muttered, setting it on the coffee table. Her eyes narrowed. She had always been more cautious. "Maybe it's from the grandchildren," she offered, though her voice betrayed doubt. Then she froze. "William, don't open it." "Why?" "Look closer. Holes." And she was right. Tiny punctures lined the cardboard. Breathing holes. Something alive was inside. We stood frozen as the faintest rustling came from within. Then hissing, a low, chilling hiss that turned my blood cold. Call someone. Now. Jessica's nails dug into my arm. With shaking hands, I dialed 911. We received a suspicious package. It's alive. It's making noises. Sir, describe the sound. I swallowed, hissing, like a snake. The dispatcher instructed us to stay back. Police were on their way. 10 minutes. 10 eternal minutes. Who could have done this, William? Jessica whispered. The answer burned in my chest, though I hated to speak it. The timing, the delivery on Father's Day, the venom behind it. It could only be Samantha. The box rustled again, louder this time. Not just hissing. Something moving, shifting inside. She was so angry when she left 6 days ago. Jessica whispered. She didn't need to say the name. We both thought it. Samantha. But this wasn't just anger. I stared at the package. This is revenge. The word hung unspoken. Too ugly to voice, but impossible to ignore. Our daughter, the child we had raised, supported, and loved despite every flaw, had sent us something meant to terrify, maybe even harm us. What kind of person does this to their own parents? Jessica's voice cracked. Someone desperate, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew it was more than desperation. This was deliberate, calculated, a cruel act of psychological warfare. Suddenly, the sound of car doors slamming made us both jump. Through the window, I saw a police cruiser in the driveway. Relief hit me like a wave. Professional help was here. The doorbell rang, sharp in the tense silence. I opened the door to find Officer Todd Reeves, tall and solid, with the sharp presence of someone who had dealt with danger before. His nameplate read T. Reeves. Mr. Carr, I'm Officer Reeves. We received your call about a suspicious package. Yes, thank you for coming so quickly. It's in the living room. We led him inside. Jessica wrung her hands nervously. Officer, we're just so grateful you're here. We didn't know what else to do. You did exactly the right thing, he assured. Calm, professional. He approached the package carefully, pulling on latex gloves. When did it arrive? About 35 minutes ago, I said. Sunday delivery. Someone paid extra. He studied the label. No return address. And you heard hissing? Yes, Jessica whispered. Like a snake, Officer Reeves finished matter-of-factly. I've seen this before. Usually non-venomous. But we'll take no chances. He called in animal control. Estimated arrival, 20 minutes. Then his questions turned sharper. Do you have any idea who might have sent this? My throat tightened. Probably just kids. A prank. His eyes narrowed. Kids don't usually have access to live snakes, shipping boxes, and your home address. This was planned. He pressed further. Any recent conflicts? Family disagreements. The words hung heavy, an accusation neither of us wanted to admit. Nothing that would lead to this. I lied. But then his next question shattered me. Any unusual charges on your credit cards recently? Pet stores? Exotic suppliers? And it hit me. The memory. That charge I'd seen weeks ago. Reptile Palace, $127.50. I had assumed it was for the grandchildren. But now it all made sense. The timing. The access to my card. Father's Day. Revenge. It was Samantha. Mr. Carr, are you all right? Reeves asked. I forced composure. I'm fine. Just processing. But I wasn't fine. My heart pounded. My daughter had sent me a snake. Do you want to file a formal report? He asked. We can trace the origin, pursue charges if we identify the sender. I glanced at Jessica. Her eyes mirrored my conflict. Justice or loyalty? After all the years of protecting Samantha, could I really turn her in? No, I said quietly. If it's just a prank, charges seem excessive. Reeves made a note. His face suggested he'd seen this before. Parents choosing silence over truth. Moments later, the white van of Mike Johnson from Animal Control arrived. With practiced efficiency, he secured the snake, a 3-foot corn snake, non-venomous, carefully placed into a carrier. Beautiful animal, Mike said. Corn snakes make excellent pets. Shame someone used it for this. The professionals left, but the silence they left behind was heavier than before. The coffee table was disinfected. The inheritance papers neatly stacked again. But everything felt different. Betrayed. Tainted. I stared at the neighbors, returning from a cheerful Father's Day picnic. Normal families. Normal laughter. Meanwhile, I had just survived a venomous gift from my own daughter. The charge still burned in my memory. Reptile Palace, $127.50. The proof was undeniable. I scrolled to Samantha's contact. Her smiling face appeared from a happier time. Emma's birthday. Before money became a weapon, before threats, before snakes and boxes. Are you really going to call her? Jessica asked softly. I need to know, I said. If she admits it, my voice trailed. What would I do then? What could a father do against his own daughter? The phone rang twice before she answered. Dad. Samantha's voice was bright, artificial. That fake tone she used when she wanted something. How's your Father's Day going? My grip tightened. If she was innocent, the question was natural. If she was guilty, it was cruel mockery. Interesting morning, I said flatly, you wouldn't happen to know anything about a strange Father's Day gift, would you? No, Dad. What happened? She asked quickly. Too quickly. And then, in the background, I heard it. Peter's quiet laughter. Not the surprised chuckle of someone hearing unexpected news, but the satisfied snicker of someone who thought they'd gotten away with something clever. That sound hit me like a physical blow. In that single careless moment, all doubt vanished. My daughter, Samantha, had sent me a snake, and her husband, Peter, found it entertaining. Just some confusion with the delivery. I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. Nothing important. I should let you go. You sure everything's okay? You sound strange, Samantha pressed. Strange? Strange was realizing your only daughter had tried to terrorize you with a live reptile, and she thought you sounded strange. Everything's fine. Samantha, enjoy your Sunday. I ended the call before my composure could crack completely. The phone trembled in my hands as the full weight of betrayal settled over me. Jessica appeared at my side. Her intuition sharpened from 38 years of marriage. You heard something? Peter laughed. I said flatly. When she asked what happened, he laughed, like it was the funniest joke he'd ever heard. Jessica placed her hand on my arm, grounding me in that moment of swirling emotions. What are you going to do? I glanced at the phone, then at my office, where years of financial records and access to accounts sat waiting. I'm going to teach my daughter about consequences. By 7 p.m., I was seated in my office. The computer hummed softly, my desk illuminated by the faint glow of the monitor. The anger had cooled into something sharper, colder, purpose. Spread across my desk lay the evidence of decades of financial rescue missions. Bank statements showing monthly transfers to cover Samantha's rent. Credit card bills I had paid without question. Insurance premiums, car payments, emergency loans that were never repaid. The receipts from selling my car to cover her gambling debts. The endless checks labeled emergency assistance that had become routine. Each paper told the same story. A daughter who no longer saw her father as a parent, but as an endless ATM. I logged into my online banking. Samantha was listed as an authorized user on my credit card. Access I'd given her back in college for emergencies. 20 years later, it had become her permanent lifeline. The screen asked, "Remove authorized user?" My cursor hovered for 10 long seconds. Not out of hesitation, but because of the shift I felt within myself. 30 years of enabling undone in 30 seconds. I clicked. Access revoked. Next, I changed the PIN to the year Jessica and I were married. A number that symbolized real commitment, not manipulation. Then, one by one, I canceled the automatic payments. Her rent transfers. Her car insurance. Her gym membership she swore was essential for her mental health. Each click felt like lifting a stone off my chest. Not cruelty, accountability. I remember last month, Samantha sobbing about her gambling debts, promising it was the last time. I had wired her $5 000, only to discover the snake in the box revenge weeks later. The final confirmation screen appeared. Credit access removed. Payments canceled. PIN updated. 30 years of enabling erased in 30 minutes. For the first time in decades, I felt something I hadn't felt with Samantha in years. Control. Tomorrow morning, she'd learn what consequences felt like. No working card. No secret payments. No father to bail her out. The next morning, peace filled our kitchen. I drank my coffee. The newspaper spread open. Sunlight filtering through Jessica's herb garden. At 8:15 a.m., the phone rang. Samantha's name flashed across the caller ID. I let it ring twice before answering. Good morning, Samantha. Dad, what have you done? My card isn't working. My car insurance bounced. I tried to buy groceries, and it was declined. What's happening? I sipped my coffee. Samantha, I know you sent me that Father's Day gift. Silence. Then her tone shifted from panic to defensive fury. You've lost your mind. How could you set me up like this? Set her up? Not what are you talking about. Not denial. Just blame. I didn't set you up, I said calmly. I just stopped paying for your irresponsibility. This is insane. You can't just cut me off without warning. I have bills, obligations, responsibilities. Responsibilities, I repeated. The word hung between us. Like respecting your parents. Like handling your own finances. Jessica had paused her morning routine, watching me, ready to see if I wavered. But I didn't. Dad, please. You don't understand. Peter and I are struggling right now. The rent is due. The car payment. My car payment that I've been covering for 2 years. Your rent that comes out of my account every month. Maybe it's time you learn what real financial responsibility feels like. Her tone hardened. Fine. You want to play games? Samantha's voice rose sharply, almost to a screech. Don't expect to see your grandchildren again. Emma and Jake won't even remember you by the time I'm done. I cut her off before she could continue. Samantha, I said firmly, my voice low but steady. Those threats stopped working yesterday. Silence. Only her ragged breathing filled the line. I could almost hear her scrambling, searching for the same manipulative tricks that had always worked before. Her tone shifted, softening into the broken, pleading voice I had heard countless times. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm your daughter. I'm struggling, and instead of helping me, you're punishing me for something I didn't even do. But still no denial, no confusion, just deflection. She knew exactly what she'd done. Your struggle isn't my responsibility anymore, I said quietly. Your choices put you here. Your choices sent that package. And your choices will decide what happens next. Her anger cracked. It was just a little prank. And you completely lose your mind over it. There it was, half a confession. She called it a prank. A live snake sent to my doorstep. And yet she still expected me to bankroll her lifestyle. A prank involving a dangerous animal isn't little Samantha, I said evenly. And cutting you off financially isn't me losing my mind. It's me finally finding it. Her voice turned cold as ice. This isn't over, old man. You think you can control me by controlling money? We'll see about that. Then the line went dead. I set the phone down gently and turned to Jessica, who had watched the conversation unfold. Her eyes shone not with fear, but with pride. She's coming here, Jessica whispered. I nodded, probably with Peter. They'll want to finish this face-to-face. Jessica's hand brushed my arm. Are you ready for that? I thought carefully before answering. Was I ready to face my daughter and her husband? The same people who had drained my finances and now threatened to cut me off from my grandchildren? Yes, I said finally. I think I am. Moments later, the roar of an engine broke the morning calm. Tires screeched into my driveway. 2 doors slammed. Then heavy footsteps pounded toward our front door. The bell rang sharply, once and again impatient, demanding. Then came pounding fists. I rose slowly, calm despite the storm outside. Stay here, I told Jessica. No, she said firmly. We're in this together. When I opened the door, Samantha and Peter stood there like soldiers on a battlefield. Samantha's face was flushed with fury, her hair messy from a rush drive. Behind her, Peter loomed, his eyes dark with malice. "Dad," Samantha snapped, "we need to talk." "We already talked this morning," I said, not moving aside to let them in, "and I was very clear." She gave a bitter laugh. "Clear? You were insane. You can't just cut me off over some ridiculous misunderstanding about a Father's Day package." "There's no misunderstanding," I replied. "You sent me a snake." I responded. Peter stepped forward, his bulk casting a shadow across the doorway. "Look, old man, maybe you didn't think this through. Samantha has responsibilities, kids to care for." I met his glare evenly. Kids whose mother threatens to keep them from their grandparents when she doesn't get her way? Samantha's face twisted with rage. "Fine. You'll never see your grandchildren again. Emma and Jake will grow up knowing their grandfather chose money over family." For years, those words would have shattered me. But not anymore. "Samantha," I said quietly, "that's not a threat. That's a blessing." Her jaw dropped. Even Peter froze in disbelief. "What?" Samantha stammered. "If you're the kind of person who uses children as weapons, then maybe it's better they don't grow up learning that kind of manipulation." Peter leaned in close, his voice a low growl. "We know where you live. Old man, we know your routines. You might want to rethink your decision." Jessica tensed behind me, but I stayed calm. "Are you threatening me, Peter?" "I'm saying family works both ways. If you cut us off, don't expect us to disappear quietly." "Actually," I said, "that's exactly what I expect. And if you don't, the police will handle it." Samantha yanked on Peter's arm, but instead of calming down, his anger only deepened. "You think cutting us off makes you strong?" he spat. "We'll find another way to get what we need." "I'm sure you will," I said, "like getting jobs. People have been doing it for centuries." Samantha's voice turned venomous. "This isn't over. You'll regret this. Family doesn't abandon family. There already are consequences," I said firmly, "and you're living them now." They stared at me for a long moment. Then Samantha spun around and stormed off. Peter gave me one last menacing glare before following her. Their car roared down the street, leaving only silence behind. When I closed the door, Jessica's face was pale, but her eyes held pride. "We'll need legal advice," I said quietly. That evening, peace returned to our home. Jessica sipped her chamomile tea while I finished another cup of coffee. The kitchen, once the place for family dreams and plans, had now become the place where we accepted a hard truth. Our daughter had crossed a line, and there was no going back. William leaned back in his chair, looking at Jessica with calm resolve. "I have one more step to take," he said. Her teacup froze halfway to her lips. "What kind of step?" "Something permanent. Something that makes sure today's chaos never happens again." "You're talking about changing the will," Jessica whispered, already knowing the answer. "Yes." Silence hung heavy between them. It wasn't just a financial decision. It was the painful acknowledgement that their daughter, Samantha, was no longer trustworthy. "The grandchildren, Emma and Jake," Jessica murmured. "They'll be better off not growing up thinking love can be bought with money." William reached across the table and held her hand. "Jess, what she did today wasn't desperation. It was cruelty. The snake, the threats, the manipulation. That's who she's chosen to become. Cutting her out completely isn't punishment. It's protection. For us, for our marriage, for our future." Jessica squeezed his hand, her thumb brushing gently across his knuckles. "But will it stop her? It removes her incentive. No money, no inheritance, no control. She'll have no reason to keep us hostage anymore." Jessica's eyes filled with grief. "I hate that it's come to this." "So do I," William admitted. "But I won't let her destroy what we've built." The next morning, William sat in the office of Margaret Summers, the family lawyer who had guided them for 15 years. Her shelves of legal books framed the mahogany desk, where William now placed a thick folder of documents. "When you called, you said you needed full legal protection," Margaret said, adjusting her glasses. "Tell me everything." William recounted it all. The inheritance fight, the snake package, the frozen credit cards, the threats on his doorstep. Margaret listened silently, her face hardening with each detail. "This isn't just a family dispute," she said firmly. "It's harassment. It's intimidation. We'll address this from every angle." She began drafting changes to the will. The inheritance can go into an educational trust. Money for Emma and Jake's schooling only. Their parents will have no access. An independent trustee will control every dollar. William exhaled. "That's exactly what I want." Next came the restraining order. Margaret documented the threats, Peter's aggression, and a snake prank. "The use of a live animal makes this especially serious," she explained. "Judges don't take that lightly." "How long will this take?" William asked. "The will changes can be finalized this week. The restraining order can be filed today. Once granted, any contact from Samantha or Peter becomes a criminal matter." For the first time in decades, William felt free. The endless cycle of manipulation was finally breaking. "You've made the right choice," Margaret told him as he signed the papers. "Your family's safety comes first." That night, William and Jessica slept in peace, knowing the law was on their side. 2 days later, Margaret called. "William, it's official." At 2:15 this afternoon, both Samantha and Peter were served with a restraining order and copies of the will modifications. "It's done." For the first time in years, William felt like the storm had finally passed. I thanked Margaret and hung up, then sat quietly in my chair for several minutes. Outside the window, Mrs. Patterson was planting spring flowers in her garden, while the Hendersons' children rode their bicycles up and down the sidewalk. Normal suburban life, moving forward in its peaceful rhythm. The papers were delivered? Jessica asked from the kitchen doorway. This afternoon, I confirmed, "It's finished." She came and sat beside me, taking my hand gently in hers. Neither of us needed to discuss what Samantha's reaction might be, or whether she would try to find loopholes around the legal barriers Margaret had set in place. The law was clear, the protections were firm, and for the first time in 30 years, we were finally free from her manipulation. I thought of the daughter I once knew, the little girl who drew stick figure families and made me breakfast in bed on special mornings. That child had grown into a woman who sent venomous snakes to her father's doorstep and threatened to weaponize her own children against me. Her transformation had been so gradual that I spent decades making excuses for her increasingly cruel behavior. But the woman who stood on my porch demanding money and making threats was no longer someone I could enable. The legal documents had built the boundaries love alone had never been able to draw. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, Samantha threatened to cut me off from Emma and Jake unless I gave her what she wanted. And now, by her own escalating choices, she had secured that separation permanently, while also losing any claim to the inheritance she had fought so hard to control. Emma and Jake would still be cared for through their educational trust fund, managed by professionals who could not be manipulated. Their future, college expenses, tutoring, books, was safe. Unlike their parents, the money would never be wasted. Jessica squeezed my hand. "Do you think she understands what she's lost?" "She will," I said. "The restraining order means any attempt to contact us becomes a criminal matter, and the changes to the will mean there's no inheritance left to fight over, no financial incentive to keep reaching for us. She'll just have to find someone else to manipulate. And if she violates the restraining order, it's the police department's problem, not ours." For 30 years, I had been Samantha's safety net, catching her every time she fell while she learned nothing. I sold my classic car to pay her gambling debts. I covered her rent when she cried about emergencies. I wrote check after check, always believing this crisis would be the last one. That snake had been her final message to me. Everything she wanted to say about our relationship was inside that box, dangerous, venomous, meant to terrify. But instead of pulling me back into her control, it drove me straight to Margaret's office, where I finally found the legal protections I should have secured long ago as the sun set through the kitchen window. Jessica and I prepared dinner together with an ease that comes only when the weight of constant family drama is finally gone. No phone calls interrupted our meal. No desperate text demanded immediate rescue. No threats loomed over us about losing our grandchildren. The quiet felt sacred, like the silence after a long, punishing storm has finally passed. Tomorrow we would wake in a home legally shielded from harassment. Our retirement savings would remain intact, secure for us rather than drained by her poor choices. Our marriage would continue, without the shadow of crisis hanging over it, and I at last had reclaimed my role as a father who loved his daughter enough to stop enabling her destruction, a man who let the law build the walls that love could not. Tonight, for the first time in decades, I would sleep without wondering what tomorrow's crisis might cost me. Fire, revenge stories like this show how powerful justice can be. If you felt that impact, don't just scroll away. Hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss the next jaw-dropping tale. And drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know, what would you have done in this situation?